Nation! You're now listening to the most opinionated, the most exciting, the most son of a Schmidt. You guys actually do something useful here, right? Like, is anything you do even beneficial to someone? Whatever. Now to the show that literally has tens, that's right, tens of followers. The show that brings the Ozone Radio Network to levels of mediocrity that only Michigan fans would know. This is the Sons of Schmidt, starring Mike Meals and Brandon Zimmerman on the Ozone Radio Network.
What is up, Buckeye Nation? This is the Sons of Schmidt Podcast. This is your host, Mike Meals from Hayes and Cannon on the Ozone Radio Network. Joining me, as always, is my good buddy, Brandon Zimmerman, also from Hayes and Cannon on the ORN. What is going on, Brandon? What you know, dude?
What's up, Mike? Man, I'm still trying to recover from this past weekend, so I'm getting too old for this crap.
Yeah, dude, I literally woke up this morning having slept wrong and my back hurt, so I feel you 100% there. So
it was definitely a fun time, though.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit here, but, before we get going, this is Season 3, Episode 4. Obviously, Ohio State comes out of the game in Arlington, the Advocare Showdown, victorious, beating TCU 40-28. As I said, we're going to talk a little bit about our trip up there and that game because I know that was a lot of fun for both of us. We'll also look ahead. This week, Ohio State has the powerhouse of Louisiana, Tulane, coming to Ohio Stadium for a 3:30 Eastern kick on BTN. Before anything else gets going, man, we got to know to start the show, what is it you got in your glass? What are you sipping on tonight?
This week, I'm going with Old Reliable Larceny. Larceny is my favorite bourbon. For the price. Like, there's definitely better ones, but, for the price, you cannot beat Larceny.
That's kind of funny that you said that, though, because you say you're going with Old Reliable. I was going to tell you I'm drinking Jameson. So,
yeah,
I've got the little whiskey decanter up here in the man cave where I record at that I keep full of that, so... yeah, I had to go with my Old Faithful also. Okay, so before we get into the TCU game, one last little tidbit. I got to throw this out there because this is important, right? Ohio State plays Tulane this weekend. Tulane is coached by Willie Fritz, who used to coach at Sam Houston State. In his career, Willie Fritz has coached in 96 career games in September. In those 96 games, guess how many he's won?
I'm going to throw a number at the board here. 69? Nice.
Yeah, so a little Big Ten thing to know for you there, a little preview of the article on Friday. So, all right, man, before we get into TCU, is there anything you want to throw out here? I know we got a lot of news and notes and information to go over, and not really a whole lot about Tulane because, let's be honest, they are frickin' terrible, as you would expect, a team that, honestly, when I was trying to find their notes and depth chart, I could not remember what conference they were in. I clicked on about 4 of them before I found out they were in the American Athletic Conference. But anything you want to throw out there to start with, or are you ready to get into a roll here?
You're so silly. Just click on Big Ten and go to Ohio State, and all their links are right there.
Yeah, but sometimes I like
smarter,
to look at
not
the
harder,
other ones.
Mike Meals.
I like to see the other ones too because it's the only way I remember who's in the Sun Belt. So, all right, man, let's take a quick reset. When we come back, we will dive into the trip to Arlington and all that went into that. So we will be right back.
This is the Ozone Radio Network, a Hayes and Cannon production. For the latest episodes of all your favorite podcasts covering Buckeye Nation, look for the Ozone Radio Network on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and Speaker. You can also find the latest episodes by clicking on the Hayes and Cannon tab at theozone.net. Once again, here are the Sons of Schmidt.
right, Brandon. We made it clear. We talked about it last week on the show. We talked about it on Twitter and on the Facebook account. And, we showed a lot of stuff while we were in Arlington. You and I obviously traveled to the Dallas region, went up to the Metroplex, and was part of the Buckeye Texas takeover that took place on Saturday night. Ohio State came into a game. There were a lot of things that went right, a few things that went wrong. Obviously, Ryan Day leaves Ohio State coaching history as the winningest coach in college football history, having won 3 games and lost none. So there is no better winning percentage. But first recap that you want to get into. What's the first thing you want to get off your chest about the TCU game on Saturday, man?
Like you said, I really think they kind of got away with not playing their best game. That's part of the reason why I went with Larceny. I feel like they stole a win from a very good team without playing their best game. I think there were a lot of mistakes. I think you saw a lot of youth from some of the younger guys that are kind of becoming the big-time roles, and maybe it was pressure, maybe it was just, TCU's crazy defenses and how they just kind of sold out against everything. So I think you saw, like, some of the new starters kind of struggle, whether it was Michael Jordan with the low snaps or Austin Mack more of a significant role having his drops. I also have other theories there, but I think it was a good win for Ohio State after they woke up. But, I mean, they kind of had some opportunities in the first half to really put that game away before TCU even had a chance. We once again saw some issues on defense. And even those I'm not incredibly concerned about, because Ohio State's not going to face an offense like TCU and how fast they were moving. They just won't see that in the Big Ten schedule. There's no one that can do that, and anyone that could do it can't sustain it for more than a drive. So I could see them getting dinged with it at some point down the road, but whether it be Penn State or something where they just come out one drive and go for it. But even TCU, like that only lasted for so long. And then eventually Ohio State's depth and stamina outlasted them, and they really didn't do too much in the second half. So definitely things that Ohio State has to work on. I think that's probably a good thing for Ohio State with the schedule that they have coming up. I mean, with Penn State and the whiteout coming up, I don't know if Urban Meyer would have wanted a 60-0 win against a top 15 team. It could give him too much confidence. But it'll be interesting to see how they go and look moving forward.
Yeah, I made the comment to you on Saturday, and I kind of posted a little bit of it on Twitter. The one thing I will say is TCU was better than I gave them credit for, but they still were not a great team. There are 4 or 5, maybe stretch it to 6, depending on how you want to rate them. But there is definitely a class of college football right now that are the elite teams. Your Ohio States, your Alabamas, Clemson, Georgia, LSU's trying to work their way up in that conversation. There are a few that are up in there. TCU was a really, really good middle of the top 25 team. They were ranked very perfectly in my mind because they are better than a lot of teams that are out there, but they are not ready to move into that next echelon. I don't know if they'll beat Oklahoma from the way Oklahoma's played in the Big 12 so far this year, but they're right there. They're that next team in their conference. But when you look at the way that this game played out, and I made this comment and to you and some other people, TCU played lights out. They played their best ball against their biggest opponent. Ohio State still dropped 40 on them, and Ohio State left a whole shit ton of points on the field. And to see Ohio State be able to respond the way they did, that really makes me feel more comfortable moving forward throughout the rest of the season because, A, there's enough stuff that they still need to fix, but that also shows we can have what was a bad game in a lot of aspects and still hang 40 and beat a top 15 team. So I was really impressed, and I do, like I said, I want to give a little bit of credit. TCU was better than what I thought they would be, and they played lights out.
I'm not even going to give them that much credit. Like I feel like their gimmick was better than I thought it would be. You know, like their tempo in the first half was way faster than I thought it would be. I also think they kind of took advantage of Ohio State's youth, you know, and I know you had mentioned it before. I don't remember if it was to people or that we were sitting with or like on Twitter, but I mean, go back and watch that game, and there were like so many times where Ohio State players were just standing around, like they were not even ready for the ball to be hiked. They're looking at the sidelines trying to. That
was my Hayes Gaze article this year.
Okay,
week.
yeah.
Yep.
That's what it was. And, I mean, there were so many times, and even, like, today when I rewatched the game, it was, you know, like the one that really stood out to me was the run, I think, that put TCU up to, like, 21 points. It was where the running back was about at the 20. He kind of went outside and dove for the pylon. And you saw Draymond Jones sitting there like clapping his hands and yelling at the sideline to tell him what to do, and he's clapping. TCU hikes it, and he's still just standing there, and the running back ran right to him. He was pushed out of the way because he wasn't even ready, and that opened up the big gap. So it's not even necessarily just the people on the defense that are struggling that made bad plays on Saturday. A lot of it goes back to the coaching staff and not being able to get those plays in quick enough or communicate it to the entire team as quickly as it probably should have been, knowing that TCU was going to do this. But, I mean, like that was just one time, and there were numerous other times where Nick Bosa was just standing around and, you know, all the stars.
That's the one that I pointed out in the article Monday morning on the play where Bosa had the sack that turned into the touchdown, the first touchdown for the defense. If you watch that play, Bosa was not even hardly bent over, let alone having his hand on the ground. Like, it was so slow getting the play call in that he wasn't even set. He's just such a miraculous athlete that he was able to go whoop up on that offensive tackle and get in and make a great play. But he wasn't ready for that play to be snapped.
Well, and speaking of that, so we know Bosa did good. It ended bad for him. Like, he had a dominant first half. We knew Draymond Jones. But, like, what's some other guys that stood out to you in this TCU game, good or bad?
The one that I mentioned to you on Saturday that I thought was kind of funny, and we still haven't came to an agreement on it. I'm not ready to stand up and sing his praises, but I was impressed for his performance in Arnett. Yeah, he made some mistakes too, but for his level of play, for what I have seen him while he's been at Ohio State, I think he may have played his best game on Saturday.
I'd have to disagree with that one because Damon Arnett's actually on my bad list and I didn't really notice it too bad on Saturday. Like, I kind of agreed with you, but today, as I was sitting there watching that, like, the amount of missed tackles that he had, I mean, there was probably 4 or 5.
You got to remember, I didn't say he had a good game.
Yeah,
I said he had his best game. There's a difference. I'm not an Arnett fan. I will be the first to tell you that. Nothing against the kid. I just don't particularly care for him. But for him, I think he had one of his better games.
Yeah, I've said it before. I'm just not a fan of him. I don't view him as anything more than a nickelback. Mm-hmm. And I think he does pretty decent as a nickelback. The problem is this year, I don't know if the staff kind of lost faith in Okudah or something, or they just want to get Shaun Wade on the field more. But it's primarily been Arnett out at corner and not Okudah and Shaun Wade at safety or at the nickelback. But that may change with Shaun Wade possibly going back to safety, which I wholeheartedly support on that one.
There is no doubt in my mind right now, if I was a coach in Columbus, that I would have Fuller and Wade as safeties. I'd have Sheffield and oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. Okudah at my cornerbacks. Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
So
I'm hoping that kind of happens. I mean, they've got a good practice game. Let him back there against Tulane. He's had 2 weeks of practice there. I mean, I would start him back there. Isaiah Pryor, I don't mind, but he's nothing special. Like, he doesn't make too many plays. He doesn't screw up too many times. But, like, Ohio State needs more than that back there at the other safety spot, especially when you have Jordan Fuller next to him, who is just dominant. I mean, Fuller's one of the guys, one of the 4 guys that really stood out to me, and they're on my good list from the TCU game. But Jordan Fuller looked dominant. I mean, that guy is easily, in my opinion, one of the best safeties in the Big Ten, and possibly as the season goes on, I would not be shocked if he was one of the best safeties in the nation by the end of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, that dude does not miss a tackle. He's always in the right spot. He hits hard. We need to see a little more playmaking, I think, but I think that'll come as the defense gets more settled in, because I think right now teams know just to go towards Jayshon Went whenever he's in, and go towards Pryor. And they kind of, like, if you watch it, even the runs, like, they know where to run to. Like, they're running at one of the guys on my bad list that I've not been a fan of this year, and I know it's going to disappoint people because he's kind of a fan favorite and stuff, but I really am starting to feel like Robert Landers should not be starting. And I think, especially after watching against TCU, I just don't feel like he's big enough to play the role that the Buckeyes need. Like, he's got a motor, and you watched him every play, like, he was, like, booking towards it. But his problem is he's short, and he's not that big. I mean, he's, 280, I think, and they need him to occupy bodies. And that's kind of what the Buckeyes need. You got Nick Bosa, you got Jonathan Cooper, you've got Chase Young, you got Draymond Jones, who are rushing the passer every freaking snap. And you need a big body guy that kind of takes up 1 or 2 bodies so that the linebackers can be free and stop these runs. And what I noticed, and what I've noticed this year, is just he doesn't occupy. He's kind of still working the role of, like, what Draymond Jones does, where, like, he's trying to rush, and trying to get into the backfield. And I don't think that's what Ohio State needs. They need him to be occupying the center and the guard, or a few of the bodies, and open it up for Tuff Borland to close up those gaps, open it up for Pete Werner and all those guys. And right now, it's just, it seems like TCU was really gunning towards Landers. I mean, a lot of their runs were geared towards him, because you're not going to run towards Draymond Jones. So I really think we're going to start seeing more Davon Hamilton, Tommy Togiai, like the bigger 300-plus pound guys.
The true nose tackle, quote-unquote, kind of guys. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, like, Landers, like, I enjoy watching him play. Like, I really do. Like, there is no one that has a higher motor. I mean, like, even when he's got 3 guys on him, he's still moving, and he's not giving up. But I think a big thing to help solve the problems that the defense has right now would be getting Landers out of there and maybe sliding him over into Draymond Jones' role and let him spell Draymond Jones every now and then, and using the big 300-plus pound guys to kind of occupy space. And maybe we'll see more of that this weekend. There's talk that Landers might be out. He's nursing some injuries, and I'm on the, I feel like any Buckeye that's nursing some injuries need to rest up this Saturday and be ready for Penn State. So if Landers is nursing anything, just go ahead and sit him. Let some of those young guys go in there. But yeah, I mean, I know it's not going to be a popular opinion, but I feel like Robert Landers should not be starting.
Well, who else did you have on your bad list? Then we'll come back and get the good list from you.
The 4 names I had on bad list: Arnett, like I said; Landers, like I said; Jayshon Went. He's been on the bad list every game this year. I'm not a fan of how he plays. He's slow to react to the balls. I don't want to bash on him, but I just feel like Jayshon Went should not be on the field at all, unless it's like garbage time or special teams. Special teams, he's a beast. Like,
oh yeah,
I wish he would hit on defense like he does on special teams, and that is even last year. Like when he was playing out there, like that guy has a knack for the ball there, but when he gets out into space, he just doesn't have that feel yet. And he's young. I mean, he's still a sophomore, so like he could grow into that. I mean, he definitely has that playmaking ability. that you see on special teams. But yeah, he's on it. And then Austin Mack, of course. Like, I'm a huge Austin Mack fan, but he had a rough game. And and I don't know if you noticed it, but I wonder if Austin Mack had some sort of head injury. Because if you watched on that long pass, he catches it and he like lands on the front of his head and kind of rolls up over. And I wonder if that is what was causing him to drop those passes, because we have not seen that from Austin Mack. Like, I can't even think of one drop that he's ever had. And he had, 4 or 5?
He had 4 of them, yeah.
On a Saturday. So, I mean, I don't know if that's what happened. They stuck with him, and he came back, like it was just a little spurt, but it was immediately right after that long pass that he had the first drop. And then it was like the next quarter or so that he dropped everything that came to him. And just the way that he hit, it was kind of towards the front, and he kind of rolled over and stuff. So it just makes me wonder if maybe he was a little out there a little bit, because that just was not Mack. And Mack is such a great player. That,
I hadn't thought of it until you said it just now, but I don't know that I'd necessarily think it was a head injury. But having played football, looking back at it in my mind, and now that you mention it, what that could have been was more of like a stinger kind of a thing, where you kind of get that numbness in your fingers and stuff. And, nobody that's ever had a stinger ever wants to come out of the game. But, again, by the way, we're not doctors. We're speculating here. But I could see that as...
We did stay at a Holiday Inn. No, we didn't even stay at a Holiday Inn Express.
We stayed at a Courtyard or something.
Dang you, Marriott.
But, no, I mean, I could see that, though. That would play into it. And the way he landed, he could have kind of, just got himself a little bit of a stinger or a shocker down the hands. And, you start getting that little bit of numbness and, the shocker. You get the little bit of numbness in your fingertips and stuff. That's greatly going to affect somebody that uses his hands to catch the ball. Absolutely. It's pure speculation, but that's definitely a possibility. Absolutely. I didn't think about that.
Oh, yeah. That's just the only thing because Austin Mack is not bad. He looked horrible for a good quarter on Saturday night, and he is just not that. He's been the second best wide receiver on the team. First best is on my good list, and we've been shouting his praises for 2 years now.
Since I think our first episode of the show. I already know who you're going to, so go ahead.
He is the best wide receiver on the team. It's been without a doubt to us for the past 2 years. And he just has not really he led the team in catches last year. He's just not that dynamic guy that people think of. But KJ Hill had an amazing game. Saturday night, I thought he had a great game. Rewatching that game today, some of those catches that he made were amazing. And those are like playmaking catches that Ohio State fans have been wanting from their wide receivers for a long time. And I know we've both been saying it. KJ Hill needs to move to the outside. We wish they would have done it this year and had KJ Hill and Austin Mack as the starters with Paris Campbell in the slot. And then that opens up McCall to be the second person in the H-back role. Give him a little more playing time. Because to me, guys like McLaurin are a one-trick pony. I've actually kind of grown onto him more than I have in years past. I did not like him at all. I did not think he needed to be on the field. I feel like he provides some value. He's a good number 4 type of wide receiver, but he should not be getting a lot of playing time over KJ Hill and guys like that. So I'm glad people are finally jumping on the KJ Hill train, because we've been shouting it for a while. That guy is the most reliable wide receiver on the team. He's just at a position in the slot where you've got Paris Campbell, who is possibly one of the best playmakers in the Big Ten, even though he hasn't really been utilized too much this year so far.
Yeah, but you saw on Saturday why Paris Campbell gets as much playing time as he does, because he truly is that Percy Harvin type, quote-unquote, that everybody wants to say Urban Meyer wants, because he may make 5 catches in the game and they're all for 4 yards or less, but all it takes is one and you have a 63-yard I'm beating everybody to the damn buffet kind of a run, and he's gone. So
yeah, it was crazy how quickly he broke away from everyone. That was
you guys, just for those of you listening to us, you guys see it on TV all the time, and Paris Campbell is amazingly fast. Watching him in person may have very well been the fastest person I've ever seen live in my life. I mean, that was just crazy how fast that play happened. So
well, and how quickly he got up to his top speed. I mean, because he caught it running essentially towards the line and was able to just turn and burn.
Turn and go.
You know?
Yep.
It was crazy. So yeah.
All right,
KJ
so we
Hills,
got KJ. Who else do you have on your good list there, man? Because I think I have one that you're probably not going to mention. So I'll wait until you're done. But go ahead.
Okay. Number 2, I've already kind of mentioned Jordan Fuller. Jordan Fuller looked really good on Saturday night. Like, he is the leader back there. He's not going to make the mistakes. Like, Jordan Fuller looked really good Saturday night. That's obvious. Draymond Jones, obvious. I mean, like, dude looked like a beast. He had the pick 6. He had another interception that was, like, in his hands that he dropped. So, I mean, like, he very easily could have walked away Saturday night with 2 interceptions as a defensive tackle. He's really going to step up now that Nick Bosa's out and could be out for possibly a long period of time. He's going to have to take some pressure off of, like, Chase Young, who is very talented, but I think he's still kind of a one-trick pony too, just like some of these other guys where – he's very good at pass rushing. His rush defense is not as good. So those 3 are pretty obvious to me. The other one that really stood out to me, I didn't really notice him too much Saturday night at the game, like little things here and there, but watching the game today, he really jumped out at me, and it was Malik Harrison. I thought he looked really good. He was always swarming towards the ball. They didn't really run towards him too much. They were kind of always attacking the other side, but I mean the way he was pursuing, I think that's kind of what the Buckeyes need from that spot, and I think he looked really good. And of course, he sealed it off with the pick there at the end. That would have allowed the Buckeyes to score more points if they wanted to, but Ryan Day showed a little compassion.
Yeah, and he screwed a lot of people that went and bet all the overs on the our bet that Ohio State would beat the spread too. No, the one that I wanted to throw in here, and I know maybe it's because we're Ohio State, and over the last 18 years we developed an appreciation for this, and maybe it's just because I'm kind of a nerd that did a little bit of this similar stuff when I played or whatever, but man, Drew Chrisman is just a damn weapon for Ohio State. I mean, you saw him Saturday when he was punting. The man just does a great job at flipping the field. He pinned TCU deep. You know, sometimes the defense can hold, sometimes they can't. But having someone like that continuously at Ohio State has been a huge thing since Tressel came. But just continuing that tradition, that was the one that doesn't always get a lot of the love. But I think Chrisman had a really good game too.
Well, and he had a few shorter punts, but I think those were almost kind of planned. Yeah, because, I mean, and that's what I was watching today is, like, I think Ohio State on some of those punts were a lot more concerned with not allowing, was it Turpin, to return the punts, and they just wanted super high punts, get it downfield as far as you can while still getting it high and not letting him return it. So, I mean, they were short punts. I'm sure people were frustrated by it, but I think watching it today, I think it was a little more planned than maybe we thought on Saturday night. Yeah, no,
I had the same feeling for sure. So, and it's actually kind of funny. The one that there were 2 of them that kind of play into the last guy that was on my good list. And you and I had a really good conversation about this Saturday night amongst all the alcohol that we were consuming. So, you know, excuse me if I don't quote you exactly right here, but watching...
I won't remember it, so...
watching both J.K. Dobbins and Mike Weber, when they were being used at what is their strength, was great. Obviously, J.K. had a big game, you know, broke 100 yards for the first time this season. That last run that he had that sealed the game, and I know you've seen video and pictures of it where he just kind of like flexed on the TCU guys at the end. Well, first of all, I thought he was going to get a penalty for it, but seeing him be able to do what he's doing and getting ramped up and being ready to go, that was great. But the other one was with Weber, and I mentioned this to you, when they needed to chew the clock and they needed somebody that was going to just pound the rock right up the gut between the tackles and bowling ball over a linebacker, they had Weber in there. And I was thoroughly, thoroughly impressed with the way both of those guys did that. Both of those guys were trusted by the coaching staff. We're so used to out of the last 4 years that those are JT Barrett runs. But the runs that Weber had and then that Dobbins had, those are JT Barrett runs the last 4 years. So seeing that happen, that was really a really nice thing to see to me, because I like not just the trust in those guys and seeing their talent, but I like seeing the way that the offense is evolving more into what we've been asking for so long, where it's not JT Barrett runs anymore. It's not Dwayne Haskins runs. Haskins had the touchdown. That's great, but we're not relying on just the quarterback in those situations. So those were the ones that I saw. So,
well, and with JK, one of the notes that I had was, I think this was the first time this year that JK got his swagger back. He had the confidence. Yep. He was doing the kind of nifty juke moves that we were used to seeing last year, and we just really haven't seen too much this year. He's another one of those guys where, like, Saturday night, I knew he played good. I was a fan of how he was playing Saturday night. But then when I watched that today and you kind of saw the closer angles of some of those moves that he was making and how he was just able to sidestep people and all that fun stuff, JK looked darn good on Saturday, especially for how TCU was selling out to stop the runs. He started off a little slow and a little sluggish because TCU was kind of catching the offensive line off guard. Once they were able to actually slow them down just a little bit, JK got his swagger back, and I think we're going to be able to see the run game expand more as the year goes on.
Now, one of the things that we both talked about also and that I want to bring up, one, the little high step thing that J.K. Dobbins does when he's setting up his juke moves. I know some people probably think that that's being cocky or arrogant or whatever, but I personally love it, because just what you said, you see he's getting his swagger back, and J.K. with swagger is legitimately one of the top 3 running backs in the country. He really is. The only downside I had on my running back play, and I mentioned this to you, I think I texted it to you today, we were talking about it. Last year, we brought it up on this show that when Mike Weber runs through the line, there are times that he runs with what we call low feet. When I played football, we called it low feet. That's why you hear him say, running backs, you got to keep your feet moving, you got to get your knees up when you're going through the line. And there's more than a few times in that game, if you watch it, and he's had this a little bit this year, that he'll run with low feet and he's getting tripped up. And if he just gets those feet up and gets through that getting tripped, he breaks a couple of those runs. So, we talked about it last year, and then I remember specifically this conversation because then it turned into like a week or two later, hey, he's not doing it anymore. So I'm going back to the wheelhouse. I'm rolling the dice. I know Mike Weber doesn't listen to this show, but if he does, Mike, pick your feet up, man. I want to see you bust a long one. So,
well, and like we were talking about, we kind of thought something was up Saturday night, how he didn't warm up pregame, and he just looked a little more sluggish than we've seen. And then it comes out tonight, which is Tuesday night, that we are talking about this, that, he was seen limping off the field with the trainers and stuff. So I think he's battling through some stuff. By the time this comes out, they may already say that he's out this Saturday, but just like Robert Landers, sit Mike Weber on Saturday. He does not need to play against Tulane at all. Let JK do his thing. Let, Brian Sneed jump in there and Master T, give DeMario McCall some carries, give Paris Campbell some carries, but Mike Weber does not need to play this Saturday. Rest him up for Penn State.
If he's dinged at all, he doesn't need to be playing, plain and simple. You're absolutely right. Although I don't know if you caught this or not. We talked about it on Saturday, you and I were, that Sneed wasn't in Arlington. It turns out that there was some kind of disciplinary thing there. I'm just throwing that out. Excuse me, I heard that from the press conferences, but I'm using that as my segue, by the way. Did you like that? That's radio talk. It was a segue into the next topic.
Are you riding a Segway? Why?
Yeah. So, talking about the press conferences and stuff, obviously that came out. There was a reason he didn't go to Arlington. I know we've heard both the player interviews and we've heard some of the coaches' interviews and stuff. Obviously, for the first time this year, Urban Meyer addressed the media rather than Coach Day and Coach Schiano together taking that on. The big thing that most of us had saw and are taken with the positive light, I guess you'd say, would be that, Urban Meyer has said that this offensive staff has earned his trust. And basically, he's kind of being hands-off with the offensive game planning, just kind of as a manager to help out. But he's really trusting Ryan Day and Kevin Wilson in the game plan that they want to put in. Obviously, that's something that, as much as we all love Urban Meyer, we've kind of wanted for a while now. The other big key that I know of that I heard was, the mention that we've talked about before with the punt returner and the returners in general, but the punt returner, that position is still basically open until someone steps up and takes it. I know you got some thoughts on both of those, but was there anything else also on the staff interviews or anything that stuck out to you?
Honestly, no. I felt like it was very vanilla, and it was, it was just so geared towards the Zach Smith stuff, like these past couple of days, that I really do not care about that at all, and I don't care about it. That's about enough. So, it was good to hear Draymond Jones say things like, they heard TCU kind of talking crap about them, and it kind of fueled their fire. And, TCU was saying how if Ohio State gets down, they won't come back. And, first of all, I don't know why TCU would say that crap, because Ohio State's shown time and time again that they're going to come back when they're down, whether it be like Alabama or, like Michigan, Penn State. I mean, there's been so many examples within the past year or two that, I don't know why they would say that. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just trying to play head games. I don't know. But whatever it was, Draymond Jones heard it, and you saw how Draymond Jones played. So, Tulane, feel free to talk shit as much as you want. I'm sure Ohio State will be very receptive to it. Right.
Well, the second or third teamers will be, because they're going to see the most of the field. But obviously, the other big news that came out of the interviews and the reports and whatnot, obviously Nick Bosa is going to be out this week. With perfect common sense, you've led to it already. It's Tulane. We don't need Bosa to beat Tulane, clearly. I know right now they still haven't announced anything other than he's out this week and he's undergoing testing and all that stuff. But what is your thought moving forward? Quite simply, what do you think? How long is Bosa going to be out? What do you think is going on? And how does Ohio State respond if he's not back for Penn State or if he's out for an extended amount of time? What does the defensive line do?
I mean, obviously it's going to hurt. I'm not going to sit here and say that.
No, he's the best player in college football.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to hurt. But I think more than any other team, they can afford to be without Nick Bosa more than, any other team could. They've got, how much of a luxury is it that, you can have Nick Bosa hurt and you've got another 5-star highly talented defensive end to step into a spot. So you still got Jonathan Cooper, who I've been high on for a few years. Just kind of watching him in spring games. He's been pretty buried on the depth chart. Like I mentioned last week, he's more in that Taekwon Lewis type of role where he's not going to dominate a game, but he's going to make plays. He's going to always be in the right spot. And so I think Jonathan Cooper is going to do good. Chase Young, I've been a little disappointed with him this year, honestly. I mean, he has flashes of brilliance, and then he has flashes of dumbassness, where he's purely out of position or jumping off sides and stuff. But I think as he plays more and more, he's going to get more experience, be more comfortable, and we're going to see Chase Young be the true Chase Young that we thought he would be.
disappointment in Chase Young's performance, or is it disappointment because of the hype that was there for him to start the year? And
without a doubt, it's disappointment in my own personal hype for him. I had visions of him just
fair answer.
Coming out from snap one and just dominating, and he's done that numerous times. It just hasn't been that consistency that I thought. So, I mean, he's still playing good. If you look at the amount of hurries that he's had at the quarterback, I'm not even sure if he has a sack yet this year, but I guarantee he
has a couple.
At least 10 hurries where he was a split second too late. I mean, that first game with Nick Bosa, I think of Nick Bosa's 3 sacks, he was a half second combined late on all of those. So it's more just my personal pedestal that I put him on. That it is. And I still think he will be there by the end of the year, but I think I just had him up too high from the get-go.
I got you. Yeah, no, he had 2 in the Rutgers game because he was the over-under that week.
Oh, okay.
So I remember that, but no, I understand that. Like I said, it's just a curious question, but that's a fair enough answer. What about, before we get the over-under and we put the recap on TCU here, what about anything else positive or negative from the TCU game that you want to go on that we haven't touched on yet?
The Michael Jordan snaps, like I kind of mentioned earlier, I'm not as concerned with them. We didn't really notice it too much the first 2 games. I think that was, TCU was putting a lot of pressure on him and on his guards, and I think it was just, it's first time that they ever really faced something like that, and I think he was just so concerned with protecting his quarterback. So, there were a bunch of bad snaps. That was just not a good snapping game for Michael Jordan, but he still kept his quarterback on his feet, and Dwayne Haskins was able to get those snaps. There were no fumbled snaps or anything. So I think that'll be better moving forward. I think this game really helped him. So I'm not as concerned with the snaps as other people appear to be. KJ Hill's still the best wide receiver. I've got that written down. And then big thing, I know it's not going to happen because the coaches teach him that, but I wish the DBs would just turn their heads around every now and then. Just once a game, throw us fans a bone and turn your head around and pick off one of those balls.
Yeah, there were a few of them that if they just looked up, they would have definitely had a few more interceptions. So,
that one with Jayshon Went where he just stood there and let the ball kind of drop into the wide receiver's hands and he scored a touchdown. It's just man, well, you were there. You were there.
There was one also, I want to say it was Wade, that he had perfect defensive position. He couldn't have played it any better, but if he looks up at the ball instead of looking at the wide receiver, he probably has an interception. I remember that.
Yeah, that was on their first drive there in the corner of the end zone where Wade was with him step for step, and it wound up landing about 3 feet to Wade's side where he could have just taken a step in and made the catch, but he didn't look till the last second. Yeah, but I know which play you're talking about there.
So I know for me, I mentioned it as the article that I talked about earlier this week that I wrote. You've talked about it. We've talked about it. The slowness in the coaching staff getting the plays in, that was obviously one of the negative things for me. One of the other ones is we went back to it, and I don't know if it's just because of TCU's defense. One of the things that irritates me is watching the offense line up, and then they all do that stop and turn to the sidelines and look for the play adjustments. They hadn't done that all year, and then they did it multiple times in the TCU game. Actually, on that, the pass to Mack in the end zone where he dropped it, his first drop, they did it on that play. It was the first drive of the game. And that just irritates me. No other reason than it just irritates me. As far as a couple other things I know that I had that were positives, at least once, Tough Borland flashed for me on a pass play. He had a real nice pass breakup in the TCU end zone. Made a great play on the ball and on the receiver. So I know we've kind of mentioned a few times that Borland may not be the best at pass coverage, but he had at least the one play that really stuck out in the back of my mind. And the other one, I thought it was great. And again, it's kind of a I'm kind of surprised you don't get penalties for it, kind of a thing. But when there's about 2 minutes left in the game and Weber makes that great play and, he ends up breaking out of it and goes for like 20-some yards, and he stands up and he flexes on the defense, and then they all start to get into victory formation. If you watch that game, they even had it on the national broadcast multiple times. Everyone on the field starts turning to the Ohio State sideline, and they start dropping the OH at all the fans and everything. And I know it's cocky, and it's probably at some point going to be an unsportsmanlike penalty, but that was great. Like, hey, we're getting ready to go into victory formation, OH, kind of a thing. So, yeah, those were just the last of the notes I had on TCU. So, yeah, I just wanted to get those in there. What about the actual, here's the last thing before the over-under, as I said. Any last tidbits on the trip itself that you want to talk about, man? Did you have fun? What'd you enjoy? What'd you hate about Fort Worth? That kind of thing. Because, I had a hell of a time, dude. That was a great weekend. So
it was a great weekend. I had a blast at the game. I thought Texas Live was a blast for all you thousands of Ohio State fans that went to Texas Live and took that place over. I thought that place was awesome. I thought the stadium was amazing. It's the first time I've been to this stadium. Mm-hmm. I thought our seats were awesome. I had a lot of fun.
So awesome.
We got to meet Herbie. Mm-hmm. We, got to meet Tom Orr. Come on.
What up, Tom Orr?
Who doesn't want to meet Tom Orr?
Herbie's cool, but it's Tom Orr. The Ozone Radio Network's own Tom Orr.
Yeah. how many times do you get to meet coworkers that have no clue who you are?
Yeah, no, man, I had a great time. It really was fun, and man, it makes you, as someone that doesn't go back to Ohio a lot, it makes you remember just how much fun it is going to Ohio State games. Because I hadn't been to a game in a while, but man, it was a damn good weekend for sure. So,
and one more thing, Tony Girdman, this is to you. I'm going to track you down one of these days. I'm going to force you to come out of your shell and meet me. All right? It's going to happen.
Just get
I've tried a few times to be nice about it. I may show up in your bathroom someday. I may show up
maybe if you
as you're getting out of your car.
Bring him some Fuel City tacos. You'll be all right.
Yeah. I will bring you some Fuel City tacos. I will bring you season 1 through 3 of Better Call Saul. It's going to happen, Tony. I'm coming for you.
It's on now. All right, man. Well, let's go ahead and take a quick break. We'll get another sponsor announcer in here. We're about at the halfway point. So real quick, last chance. If you plan on retiring at halftime, now's your shot. So otherwise, we'll be back to talk about Tulane, all right?
The year was 1998. Google was founded. Windows 98 was released. Titanic and Saving Private Ryan would forever be in our hearts. Adam Sandler was still funny. A musical group called Chumbawamba knocked us all down. College football introduced the first real national championship. But do you know what didn't happen in 1998? Bill Clinton did not have sexual relations with that woman. And Tulane did not win a national championship.
Or did it? That's right, things have changed. No longer is it acceptable for only Alabama to claim mythical national championships that no one cares about. This is your chance to get back up again. Thankfully, now you can claim any championship you want. Like Tom Hanks leading the American troops across Europe, those damn Golden Knights in America's toilet that is Central Florida have led the American Athletic Conference to a second national championship. Congratulations to you, Tulane Green Wave fan. Your team is now the 1998 national champion, 20 years after your heroic Liberty Bowl win against BYU on New Year's Eve. Tulane has always been a pioneer of the game after founding the SEC, and it's time to claim your birthright. We always knew those pesky New Year's Eve games would matter someday. Congratulations, Green Waver. You stayed, and you were a champion. Pick up all of your 1998 national championship gear at university bookstores all across the Tulane campus before it's gone like Tommy Bowden heading to Clemson.
Well, folks, I have some bad news. I no longer see Brandon on the video monitor. I think he actually did pull Avante Davis on us. Brandon, are you there? Brandon?
I'm here. I'm here.
Damn, I thought we all got lucky.
I know. Citra, you want to come back?
All right, man. So I mentioned this. I mentioned it earlier. Ohio State obviously is going back to Columbus. Tulane comes into town to visit. 3:30 kick on BTN. The Green Wave. Let's go ahead and get this out there. They are not good. They are an American Athletic Conference team, which, as we discussed, I figured out finally. Not anything close to great program as far as talent right now. I mean, there's a reason they're a group of 5 school, you know. No matter if they had been at one point the chartering member of the SEC and, you know, whatever. They're just
98 national champions, Michael.
Yeah, that's true. They
better respect them.
They are self-proclaimed 98 national champions, them in Tennessee. So
respect.
I got to put some respect on their name. Last week, UAB beat Tulane 31-24, drops Tulane to 1-2 for the season. Look, man, I can't say it enough. Tulane is so bad that game was on Facebook. Like, it wasn't even on a national broadcast. It was broadcast on Facebook. So, not a great outlook for the season for the Green Wave. You know, the only thing I can say, and I've mentioned this before, Coach Willie Fritz, he does have a track record at building successful programs at the FCS level. You know, he was at Sam Houston State before he went to Tulane. So he has had some success as a coach in his career. The other only note that I have on Tulane, I've mentioned to you before, is the coach's daughter is a reporter here in Houston, and she's kind of cute. So that's really all I've got, man. What do you got on Tulane?
Yeah, I mean, there's not really too much to say about them. I mean, they, you know, seem like they try to be pretty balanced. They have their 2 running backs, Stefan Hooterson and Darius Bradwell, that both kind of have equal numbers of carries. Quarterback seems like nothing too special. Only thrown 1 pick this year. So really the only thing that kind of stood out to me is this is kind of the biggest offensive line that they're going to be facing this year, with every one of their offensive linemen kind of being almost over 300 pounds. I think the left guard's only like 295 or something. So this is probably the biggest offensive line that they have this year. So it'll be interesting to see how they deal with that. Yeah,
they're from what I was able to see with everything going on with them, you know, they have a couple running backs that have had, you know, 200 yards apiece for the season so far. Their quarterback has had 30-some carries or so. You know, I mean, he's not afraid to obviously carry the rock when he needs to. They have a couple guys that have had right around 30 catches each for the year. I think they've combined for like 5 touchdowns, roughly 550 some odd yards. I don't remember the exact number. I don't have it right in front of me now. But you know, they're just, for a group of 5 program, they are balanced. They try to be a good offense, but you know, as I said, there's a reason they're a group of 5. They're not a Power 5 team, even though they're in a group of 5 conference. You know, there are some schools that have tried to lay claim to that. Offensively, they're just not built to compete with a defense like Ohio State's, you know, and it's going to show even without Bosa. Even if Ohio State wanted to give Borland most of the game off, even if they wanted to, you know, have Wade play a lot of safety to get a lot of reps in there and play a lot of like a Jeffrey Okudah and those kind of guys, even at that rate, you're still not going to have this offense be productive even in the way that TCU was, you know. So I'm not worried about them as a competition level here, you know. So
well, and I mean, the way the Buckeye defense is set up too, I mean, Tulane gives up a lot of sacks. They gave up 6 last week to UAB. They've given up 12 total in 3 games. So Ohio State's defensive line is just going to be feasting on these guys, and they're going to do what every team does and try to throw screen passes, even though none of their running backs have caught a pass yet this year. They're going to try a bunch of those quick passes. They've got some experienced guys. Yeah, that's the only thing that you can do, especially when you have an offensive line that, even though they're big, they're obviously kind of a little bit slow. And, that they won't be able to drop back. Otherwise, this defense, even without Nick Bosa, is just going to dominate. Mm-hmm. And it's going to lead to Jonathan Banks probably getting hurt or something like that. So you're going to see a lot of quick passes. You're going to see them really kind of rely on Darnell Mooney, who seems to be like their number one wide receiver. 18 catches, 308 yards, 3 touchdowns so far this year. So, he's had 23 starts for his career. So I think he's kind of the guy that they're going to rely on and try to work. And a lot like what UNLV did last year. I forget who that wide receiver was. I'm drawing a blank on it. It's like Devontae something. I feel like
as soon as we quit recording, it'll come to me too.
Yeah, like he was just, they just kept on going to him, and he played a good game. He was a very good wide receiver, especially for what UNLV could do. So I think they'll kind of rely on those type of things. Same thing with Taron. What do they call it? Oncalade. He's another guy that has 35 starts. So they've got some experience there at wide receiver. So they're going to work at some of those short passes, try to eliminate the defensive line's presence. And regardless, no matter what they do, like I said, I think Ohio State should move Shaun Wade back to safety. They should play Okuda a lot. They should put Arnett at nickel. They should, get their linebackers kind of set. Mm-hmm. Let Davon Hamilton, let Tojai kind of play defensive tackle and occupy some space and kind of get things working for Penn State, because I honestly don't care how crappy they look against Tulane or how good they look. I just want them to kind of work on some stuff so that we kind of look better than we did against TCU, against Penn State, because those mistakes – that TCU crowd was a home crowd for the Buckeyes. Mm-hmm. It was in Dallas or in Arlington. In 2 weeks, they're not going to be able to make the mistakes that they made on Saturday night and get out of College Station with a win. So,
get out of College Station?
My bad.
I was going to say, they're coming back to Texas?
Dang it.
All right, man. So
I don't care about Penn State.
Yeah, I don't either. State College, by the way, right?
Whatever. Read my article from last year. You will know how I feel about Penn State. They're a nobody.
So, but with that in mind, though, what I want to do, because look, we can only beat a dead horse so much. That I've said it that Ohio State is so good. You've said it, Ohio State's so good. They've passed the eye test. I don't really want to spend a whole lot of time on looking at Tulane ahead, because it's just going to be repeating all that. So what I want to do real quick here, because what we ended up actually doing is we had a decision from our director that we're going to move this into this segment to help balance out the show here. We're going to do our over-under. I'm going to review last week, and we're going to get this week's picks, okay? So first things first, last week, over-under, Haskins 300 yards. We both took the over. We got that one right. J.K. Dobbins, 125 yards. We both took the over. We missed it. He was actually at 121. So, not too bad. Close enough. Mac, we had him at 100 yards. You said under. You had that one right. And I'm going to give you credit on this one because you said he's going to have probably 8 catches, which if you took his 4 catches and his 4 drops, that's 8. So we can't assume that he's going to have whatever happened to him again. So, you get some extra bonus points there. On the Jones pick, Draymond Jones, we had 1.5 sacks. We both went under. We got it right. And then we had the 2 tackles for loss, and that's a draw because we both covered that one. On Fuller, over-under on the interception, you still are riding with Fuller to get his pick. You missed it, and I had that one nailed. So This week we're going to take a little bit different flair just because of what I'm fully expecting coming out of the TCU game. First things first, over-under, starting with passing, is going to be Tate Martell. Does he have 125 yards passing, over or under?
I'm going to go under on that one.
Under. Okay. I honestly would not be surprised to see that be an under, but I think Martell is going to get a good half of play. Maybe not the whole second half, but he'll probably play all the fourth quarter.
Well, and that's one thing, too, is I just think Ohio State, and I know Urban Meyer kind of mentioned it today, and I was thinking it even before he did, but I really think Ohio State is going to focus on getting their run game fixed. Because even though J.K. Dobbins has had a good game, Mike Weber's had a good game, the offensive line has not looked as good as they have in years past. So I think they want to get that running game kind of fixed a little bit more, and even when Tate Martell's in, I think they're going to be working on getting those backups some run blocking practice. And,
Okay.
I could see him having over 125 yards rushing, but I don't see passing.
All right. Now, with that in mind, though, because we are expecting them to really try to emphasize the running game, obviously we know Weber and Dobbins are going to have whatever it is they have. You know, Dobbins will probably, I think they'll try to get him started. I still would not be surprised to see Weber, if he's dinged up at all, not play this game or only play a very small number of snaps. So with that in mind, and knowing that Snead was kept out of Arlington for disciplinary reasons, for our rushing total this week, I want to go with Master Teague. Does Teague have over or under 50 yards rushing?
I'm going to go over on this one, and I'll even double down and say that he will have over a 50-yard run.
Ooh, look at that guy.
Feeling confident in Master Teague.
All right, I can take that one. I'm pretty sure I've alluded to it. We're going to have a lot of carries on the offensive side of the ball. I think Teague will have 50 yards too. As far as receiving goes, I'm going to go to your man now. It's his time. Does KJ Hill have 100 yards receiving? Yes or no? Over or under?
I love me some KJ Hill, but he'll be under.
Yep. I'll be honest with you. There's not a situation this year where you have one of these receivers that has a big play on top of his regular plays, I don't know if there's enough balls to have 100 yards receiving. I've said that
exactly.
every day, every game this week, and I think it's going to be that way again.
Well, and it's going to take games like McLaurin had the first game where it was like two big plays. You know, It's not going to be a guy out there doing like a Michael Thomas 10 catches for 120 yards type of thing. It's going to be Terry McLaurin with 2 catches for 105 yards or something like that, or Paris Campbell,
that's who I was going to
breaking
say.
an 80-yarder and then getting like a little 20-yard crossing route. So KJ Hill, I mean, he'll probably have more than 5 catches like he always does, but I wouldn't be shocked if it was like in the 5 for 50 range.
He'll be the leading receiver. I think you're right there. But all right, so now because of the obvious changes with the defensive line and with Bosa being out and whatnot, I wanted to change it up a little bit. Now with the defensive linemen, defensive ends all included, does Ohio State from the front 4 have 3.5 sacks, over or under?
Ooh, from the front 4, I'm still going to go over.
Over?
Yeah, I'm going to go over.
I'm actually going to go under there. And only because I saw something on Saturday night that makes me think that it's not going to be all from the defensive line, especially with Bosa out. There was a lot of pressure applied from the linebackers, a lot of middle linebacker blitz. I would not be surprised if the team has 4 or 5 sacks, but I think you're going to have a couple of those picked off by linebackers or maybe even like a safety blitz or something. So, all right, the next one we like to go with the interception pick here, over under. This week, I really want to see this guy get his pick. I want to see him get some playing time. So I'm going to make the executive decision. We're going to go with Jeffrey Okudah. Does he get a pick this week? Yes or no?
No.
No. Yeah, I think I want him to get one. So I'm going to go ahead and say over, mainly because I wanted to take Fuller off there because maybe now that he's not our pick, he'll get his this week. But I'd love to see.
I'm just not
Jeffrey
confident we
Okudah.
will have very many DB picks because nobody's looking for the ball. So, you start throwing some linebackers and some defensive tackles on there, I'm going over. But
So next week you want Draymond Jones for interceptions again?
I would take the over for Draymond Jones.
All right. Last one, just to get a little bit of special teams love out there and to change it up just a hair. Nurnberger, does he have 5 scores, extra points, and field goals, over 5 or under 5?
Oh, definitely over.
Okay. Maybe I should have set that one a little higher because
Yeah.
I'm going to go over also.
I think he could have 5 scores in the first quarter.
Yeah, we might need to change that. We have to see what the revisionist history wants us to do. So, all right, man. So that sounds like a good wrap. I mean, like I said, I don't want to beat too much into Tulane because I'm just not overly impressed with them. But what we'll do here, we'll go ahead and reset. It's time for the Sons of Schmidt. We get back from this. I'll get yours. I'll give you mine, and we will go with that. So we'll be right back.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for your favorite weekly segment.
Son of a Schmidt.
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 All right, man. So I know we've had a couple of weeks to get everything going here, and, we're getting ready to kick off week 4 of the season. We're roughly a quarter of the way through. After Tulane, we pretty much are done throughout most of the country with everybody being their out-of-conference schedules. It's mostly back to conference football after this week. So, we've had a good feel for what's going on in the world of college football in 2018, but everyone knows that every week there's something to be pissed off about and to want to rant on. So what do you got for your Son of a Schmidt this week, my friend?
So this week I'm going to go with, it's not even something I'm pissed off about, but I'm going to go in a direction that probably no one would expect. And I'm going to try to get people to slow their rolls just a little bit here. We have Urban Meyer coming back this week, in case you haven't heard. He's like pretty decent guy. He's only won 180 games in his career. Win percentage of .853. Won numerous national championships, BCS games, bowl games. We need to really realize how good he is and not rush to proclaiming Ryan Day as the greatest coach ever. There are people that literally think they would rather have Ryan Day be head coach over Urban Meyer. And I think Ryan Day is a very good coach, and I would love for him to be the coach in waiting. I think he would be a very good coach someday for Ohio State. But right now they have Urban Meyer, who is arguably at least the second best coach in college football. No matter what you think happened with JT Barrett, I think we kind of see with Dwayne Haskins that JT Barrett's throwing had some faults to it, so he kind of played to the best offense that he could. But, just looking at Saturday night, there are little things that Ryan Day is still learning. One that we've kind of talked about quite a bit is, controlling his defensive coaches and getting those play calls in. We didn't see that kind of crap with Urban Meyer as a coach. I mean, Oregon ran at that same speed with a lot more talented people, and you never
ran
saw
the whole time with it.
Yeah, I mean, they did that the whole time. They had the players to go with that the whole time, and Urban Meyer had his defensive staff ready and prepared for that. And you didn't see the players standing around and the Oregon Ducks running at them. Saturday night, we saw that quite a bit. And ultimately, that does come back with Ryan Day. Yeah, he's got Greg Schiano, and he's got experienced guys there that should have been on top of it. But that's the head coach's job to make sure that shit doesn't happen. And Urban Meyer would not have let that happen on Saturday night. You go to the end of the second half. There's 7 seconds left. They could have easily went for a play towards the end zone. It was still a fairly close game. Instead, Ryan Day just chose to kick the field goal right then and there, which Dornberger ultimately missed. But, like I would have loved to see him push for another, at least, quick throw to the end zone. I mean, Dwayne Haskins could have easily got a jump ball off to Ben Victor or something. And Dwayne Haskins would have made a smart throw. The big one, too, like you mentioned in the Hayes case, and I brought up Saturday night, but, like, I'm not putting the blame on Ryan Day, but, like, there was no stretching that happened at halftime at all. Like, you saw TCU out there doing their halftime stretches. Ohio State ran out to the field with, I think 30 seconds left. Like, there was no stretching. It was
like 41 when they came out of the tunnel, yeah.
Yeah, and they went straight into the kickoff. There was no stretching or anything. You look at it, Joey Bosa gets hurt 3 plays later. Nick Bosa, sorry. Man, I'm off my game tonight. So, Nick Bosa gets hurt 3 plays later. Draymond Jones went down pretty early. There were a few wide receivers that went down with some cramps there in the third quarter. So, I mean, I'm not putting that on him. And who knows, AT&T Stadium may have a whole separate field that, Ohio State was on stretching before they came out. But, just seeing TCU out on the field, seeing Ohio State not on the field, not seeing any stretching going on, going straight into the kick return. And it just, I don't know. I mean, there's still, as much as I like Ryan Day, I think we all need to kind of slow our rolls and let him kind of learn a little bit more under Urban Meyer and kind of, there's still a lot that can be learned. And he looked awesome for these past 3 weeks. And Ryan Day is going to be a great coach, and hopefully he's a great head coach for Ohio State someday down the road. But we need to not forget how great Urban Meyer is and just appreciate that we now have one of the best coaches in college football back, not some young guy that's learning the ropes. We have one of the best coaches in college football coming back, and just appreciate it and hope that Ryan Day sticks around long enough to learn from him to become one of the greatest coaches in college football someday down the road. So, son of a Schmidt, enjoy Urban Meyer. Do not underappreciate how great he really is.
Yeah, because realistically, who knows how long we still have Urban Meyer, I made the offhanded comment over the summer when all that crap came out with Zach Smith that, it would not surprise me to see Meyer come out, if Ohio State wins the national title this year, say, you know what, after all the shit I put up with, I'm retiring. So, who knows? But, you're exactly right. When I make the comment earlier about, Day being the greatest coach in Ohio State history, obviously that's tongue-in-cheek because he's 3-0, not that, X's and O's that he's necessarily the greatest game manager or anything. And, you are 100% right. We've talked about it on this show before. We did last year. I asked you the question at one point, at that point, has Urban Meyer supplanted Woody Hayes as the greatest coach in Ohio State history? Because he's already definitely in the top 5 or 10, whatever your classification is, of college coaches all time. So, no, that's a great rant. We have a great staff here, but Urban Meyer is one of the best for a reason. So, yeah, absolutely, man. I like it. Okay, so for mine, I want to introduce you to a couple people, okay? Now, I know a lot of Ohio State fans know this guy's name. A lot of you probably follow him along with, all of us from the Ozone and Hayes and Cannon and the ORN and whatnot. But there's a guy that works for the Ohio State Rivals site. It's called Buckeye Grove. His name's Kyle Lamb. Puts out a good podcast. It's one of the only ones that I listen to that's not an ORN podcast. Kyle Lamb has really set himself apart during this whole Urban Meyer, Zach Smith situation. And I've tried not to get into it too much on here, and I don't want to get into it too much. But there was something that came up, obviously, this week with Meyer coming back. He did the interview with Tom Rinaldi of ESPN, and he released a statement on Twitter, and he talked a little bit about it at the media interviews this week. But one of the things that he said, that Kyle Lamb had said, and he quoted, and I'm quoting him off Twitter here, so I'm going to read this. But it says, "One thing Urban said today, and from August, I've been preaching this. They're taught, quote, they're taught to let law enforcement handle it and get out of the way, end Urban quote. This is 100% true, and some brain-dead members of the media would know that if they spoke to people to do the job for a living. They're supposed to make sure their supervisors know and let authorities handle the investigation. That's what was done in this situation. The idea that more should have been done goes against training of every mandatory reporter in every institution in America. Now, what Kyle Lamb is referring to is later on he links back to a post that he had wrote where he had actually interviewed some Title IX compliance officers and, the different reporting officers that you have to have. Not necessarily from Ohio State. He didn't really say from where, I don't think. But he had talked to various ones, and basically that is exactly what they tell you. You get out of the way, but let law enforcement handle it because they are not the investigative arm to do law enforcement. So at that point, I was just, hey, another good point. I had no problem with it. But then along comes a guy named Dan Wolken, who's the lead college football writer for the USA Today. And if you're not aware of this, the USA Today has made a very, very good point of having every single person on their sports writing staff just calling for Urban Meyer's head based off of this whole Zach Smith thing. But Wolken comes on and says, the fact that Shelley Meyer retweeted this straw man nonsense today tells you a lot. And he was referring to the quote that Kyle Lamb had that I just put out there and read to you. And they go into, these guys kind of go back and forth, and, they went back and forth on the whole situation and what Dan Wolken said they should say and what, he should have done and whatever. You've led to this before, and I just want to go on it again. I appreciate the guys that cover Ohio State and do the Ohio State beat that have stood up, not necessarily for Meyer or for the university, but have stood up for what was believed to be the right thing to do. I'm not talking about, calling the cops, getting your hands into the investigation, anything like that. They're reporting that Meyer did what he was supposed to do. When you have these guys from the USA Today that are out here rallying to get people to click on their website, to read their articles and visit their sponsors, and they are doing what they can just to drive readership and to piss off Ohio State fans, you guys, let it go. Just let it go. Because you're not going to change anyone's mind. They're not going to change anyone's mind. We all believe, for the most part, that, yeah, Meyer may have made some things that weren't great. Meyer had a reason for what happened to him as far as the suspension goes. Maybe not the domestic violence stuff itself, but overall just the way that things were handled may not have been the greatest way they could be handled. But let those guys go. They're just out there to piss us off and to drive clicks and to get interactions. It's not worth it. So it took everything I had today when I saw that to not chime in and bitch about it. But, and I think it's because you had a similar rant earlier, but that was the one that drove me, and it drove me nuts that these people are still doing this. It's just not worth it, guys. Don't do it. Don't give them the notoriety. Just, retweet our tweets from us and stay with the Ozone guys. So, just stay away from it, man. Son of a Schmidt.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I kind of talked about is like I tweeted this out like earlier this year too, kind of when it was all going on. But like I just do not grasp the concept of reading something, acknowledging it in your head that said person simply wants to get recognition or to get some sort of uproar and to make people upset, and then to give them that satisfaction to let all of your people know that he's stupid and how they should tell him that the person's stupid. Like I just don't get that. Like if I think something's stupid, I just ignore it. Like, man, like if I retweeted everything that I saw that was stupid, like
you'd retweet my whole timeline.
I would retweet a lot of people's whole timelines.
So, all right, dude, that's enough of the griping and moaning and pissing and all that good stuff that we do here. So, We'll reset real quick. We come back. We got our Schmidt picks. We'll recap last week. We'll look at this week. We'll get the closing on this, and we'll tie this one off and prepare for the green wave. So we'll be right back. All right, Bama Lamma Lamb. Last week, man, I got some bad news for you. You had a less than stellar week. I know you're heartbroken. I can see it in your face. So, to recap, we had the LSU Auburn game, Boise State Oklahoma State, Southern Cal Texas, BYU Wisconsin, CSU Pueblo versus Colorado School of the Mines, and Ohio State TCU. Last week, your picks were Auburn, Boise State, Texas, Wisconsin, Pueblo, and Ohio State. You went and won 2 of those. So not the best performance. That drops you to 7-5 overall for the year. I had Auburn, Oklahoma State, Texas, Wisconsin, the School of the Mines, and OSU. Obviously, the Oklahoma State, Texas, Ohio State, and Colorado, I had those all right. It takes me to 8-4. I've overtaken you for the season, so I'm going to take this as a win. We're not going to do this anymore while I'm ahead. But looking at this week, there's actually some good games that are kicking off on Saturday. A lot of the, as I mentioned, a lot of conference games are firing up and getting going for those that haven't started them or getting into it and whatnot. First game that we're going to look at takes on a decidedly Big Ten flair. We have an unranked, fresh off a loss to Troy, Nebraska team traveling to the Big House to take on number 19, overranked that team up north. Who you got?
I got Michigan. I don't think Nebraska is that good this year, and as I tweeted out, I think it's going to take a few years for Scott Frost to get the talent of players that he had at his AAC school that he will have at Nebraska, and I think they'll get beat up pretty good against Michigan.
Yeah, I just don't think Nebraska's very good either after watching them on Saturday. And unfortunately, as much as I hate to say this to my Cornhusker friends, I'm going with Michigan here also. Number 22, Texas A&M travels to Tuscaloosa to take on number 1, Alabama. What you got?
Let's be Bama by a lot. I don't think A&M is good at all.
See, I think A&M's better than what we think they are, but I don't think they're number 22, and they're nowhere near Alabama. So
their whole offense is based off running the ball, and you're not going to line up and run the ball against Alabama.
Nope, Alabama is too good for sure. So fresh off of their loss to Ohio State, number 17 TCU, which, by the way, that is a good move. TCU played a good game. They only fell 2 spots losing to Ohio State, so I like that one. But they go to Austin to take on Texas, fresh off their win over USC. What do you got there, man?
Man, I really like TCU, and I think it's a good matchup for them. I'm actually going to go Texas. I feel like this could be kind of a letdown game. It was a tough physical game for TCU, not something they're used to on Saturday night. I'm going to go with Texas. I'll go out on a limb here.
All right. Well, we got our first split. Like I said, I was impressed by TCU being better than what I thought they were. I am not impressed with Texas yet right now. So I'm going to go with the Horned Frogs to rebound there and knock off their rival. Number 7, Stanford at number 20, Oregon. What you got?
That's another tough one. Jeez. I'm going to go I'm going to go Stanford on this one.
Really?
I know it's in Eugene. Abear's playing great at quarterback. I'm going to go Stanford.
Man, I thought we were going to both go Oregon there because I know how much you just despise Stanford. I think this game will be close enough that the home field advantage in Eugene's going to be the difference. So I'm going to go with Oregon there.
But do you think they'll be able to stop Bryce Love? Or KJ Costello? I don't know. I'm going with Stanford.
You're going to shoot me, and I know Joe Dexter is going to shoot me, but I'm not overly impressed with Bryce Love yet this year.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm
What about last year? Were you impressed with him last year?
I thought he was a good running back. I'm not going to say he's not.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. I have not been impressed with him yet. So
you know this is going to end with Oregon whooping the crap out of Stanford and me looking stupid. So whatever. Let's just move on.
All right. Fresh off their stunning performance and wonderful showing, number 18 Wisconsin travels to Iowa City and takes on the Hawkeyes. What do you got there?
Is this a day game or a night game?
It's a night game.
Oh,
actually.
man. Whew. Gosh, Iowa at night. I feel like they've knocked off some team at night before.
Have you seen that?
I don't know. I feel like they have. Wisconsin just has not looked good this year, but then Iowa really has. I'm going to go Wisconsin.
You're going to go Wisconsin?
Yep.
Well, I know, we've mentioned it before. We've got the FWAA, whatever it is, and actually today I opened up my little package thing that Iowa sends out every year that has a little notebook in it. Did you get that yet?
Yeah, that stupid notebook.
Yeah, I still have the one from last year because I couldn't find an Iowa fan to give it to. But as much as Iowa's trying to buy my vote, and I know that's why they sent it this week, they were counting on me to pick them. I'm going to go with Wisconsin also. So I just don't think the Hawkeyes are really all that great. So last one here, the obvious one. We've got Tulane going to number 4, Ohio State. Give me your prediction and your score.
Oh, this is the easiest one for me. So finally an easy one. No,
yes.
Like I said, I think Ohio State is going to focus on the run. They're still going to put up a lot of points. I think we'll see some pretty long runs, which we really haven't seen this year too much. Whether it's, J.K. Dobbins breaking one or Master Teague or Brian Snead or even Paris Campbell breaking one. I think Ohio State kind of focuses on that. I think Dwayne Haskins will still do his damage. I don't think he'll break 300 this week. I think he'll be more in the 200 to 250 range. And I think J.K. is going to have a big game. So defense will dominate. I mean, this is the type of team that the defense will dominate again. So I am going to go. I'm going to go 66-7.
All right. Well, the good news is that's kind of creepy. So as you were talking, I was typing my score prediction in so that I had it already. So when I do the review next week, I've got it. I think you're on to a good thing here. The repeating numbers really hits home and feels good. I see this one being, as I mentioned earlier, I think your starters are going to play the first half and part of the third quarter. At some point, you're really going to see a concentration of the second stringers in there, trying to get game reps again, continuing to work on the things that Urban has seen that they need to work on with him being on the sidelines for the first time. But instead of 66, I'm going to go 55, and there's always that fluke touchdown. I never put that out, so I still think it's going to be like a 7 points game for the defense they're going to give up. So I'm going to go 55-7 Ohio State. So.
Well, one thing I do got to say with this game is usually I'm all about putting up as many points as possible, but this is the type of game that I would be perfectly happy as long as Ohio State scores over 40 and they give up less than 10 and nobody gets hurt. I would be perfectly happy. It could be 40-10, and I would be fine with this win as long as nobody gets hurt as I go into Penn State, because that's the big thing with that game looming.
Yep, absolutely. The last thing we need is another injury or something. So, all right, man, that wraps up our Schmidt picks. Dude, we had a great time in Arlington. The boys go back home. They're going to be in Ohio Stadium, feasting on Mama's cooking at home now. Any last tidbits or closing bits that you want to throw in here and get put on the tape here before we ship this one off and have it done?
Nope, I'm excited to have Urban Meyer back as coach.
Oh, man, that's going to be so nice. And I just think Urban Meyer's – this week's going to be some restraint. The Big Ten is in for some trouble because they're going to have a pissed-off Urban Meyer, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm here for it.
The one thing that I ask, though, is just no more interviews, no more press conferences about anything. Like, if anyone brings it up, I just want full-on Nick Saban
Next
mode.
question.
Yep. Next question. Like, he's entertained this. As you've mentioned a bunch of times, like, no one's opinion's changing. So just move on. Whatever people think of you, they're going to think of you, no matter how many times you tell them that, like, nothing they're saying is true and it's been documented. So just move on with life, dominate the Big Ten, win a national championship.
Sounds good. I'd be remiss if I didn't throw this out here for those of you that didn't see it. I was really impressed and excited. Saturday, Brandon can attest to this because I was kind of full-blown fangirling it. Saturday night, I met Ezekiel Elliott's mom finally in person, and it took everything I had to not be full-on fangirl until I finally did get a chance to say hello to her. So that was the coolest moment ever for me.
The coolest moment for me was not watching you hug Zeke's mom. It was Zeke's mom going up to that dude wearing the Cowboys Zeke jersey and saying, "Nice jersey." And then you walking up and saying, "Do you know who that was?"
Yeah, because he had no clue. I had to tell him it was Zeke's mom that just told him he was wearing a nice jersey of her son. So, yeah, that was pretty good too. All right, man. So last thing here, just as a reminder, you're listening to the Sons of Schmidt podcast on the Ozone Radio Network, presented by Hayes and Cannon. The ORN is the online radio home of the Buckeye Sloopcast, the Silver Bullets podcast, Across the Field, and, of course, the Sons of Schmidt. We have new episodes broadcasting every day of the week. For more information, go to www.theozone.net. And that's all I've got, dude. So let's put a bow on this and we'll ship out. So go Bucks. OH.
I-O.
Buckeye Nation, make sure you're getting the latest news and episodes from the Sons of Schmidt podcast. You can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Sons of Schmidt. You can follow us on Twitter at Sons of Schmidt, or email the show, sonsofschmidt@gmail.com. And look for us on Hayes and Cannon at theozone.net.